recording now. All right, welcome everyone. We should include, someone is putting in the chat, we should include Kingston musicians. Yes, I think that's fabulous. In fact, just as a little announcement, just before we get going, the city has a call out for Kingston musicians for the music in the parks. I believe the press release is on the city's website if you want to look for it. So we're still actively looking for musicians that have an address in the city of Kingston to play. So pass that around if you know anybody. So it's 4:06 on Monday, March 16th. Welcome everyone to the Live Well Kingston Commission meeting. As per usual, we'll do a round of introductions. Say your name, your pronouns if you'd like, an organization if you're affiliated, and how about something about this nice weather? How about something that you like to do outside? So today I got to walk outside a little bit with my work, and it just felt really good to be walking around. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I welcome you all. And Troy Ellen, as always, you're in my next box. So Troy Ellen, please introduce yourself and pass it for me if you don't mind.
I had the opportunity to sit out on my back deck and the sun goes around. Can you hear me? Oh, good. The sun goes around so that I was actually in the sun. I felt like, I was like, turned into it, and it's supposed to be 71 degrees on Friday, and I'm thinking I'm going to spend some time at Kingston Point Beach. But yes, my pronouns are she, her, Aya. I'm the chair of the Live Well Kingston Commission, and I also work in a lot of other spaces. Anyway, I will pass it to Heidi.
Good afternoon, everyone. And yes, this is an absolute glorious day. I hope it's not a tease. Hoping it sticks around for a little bit. My name is Heidi Kirshner. I'm with the YMCA of Kingston and Ulster County. My pronouns are she, her, Aya. And I did have an opportunity to get out and walk around today, and it was just so nice not to have to wear a jacket. So, all right. And I pass this on to Katrina Williams.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Williams. I work at the Ulster County Department of Mental Health. I use she, her, they pronouns. Yesterday when I got home from work, me and my daughter, who's 5, went around the yard and looked at all the little tulip and daffodil, popping up from the ground. That was really special. I didn't expect to see that actually, so it was a surprise. I will pass over to Theresa.
Thank you. I'm Theresa Widman. I use she, her, Aya pronouns. I am the chair of the Heal Well Focus team, amongst other things. And I enjoy doing a lot of walking. And so it's gotten much nicer that that the weather is a little bit better for walking. It was brutal for the winter time. But specifically today, I ate lunch outside and it felt so nice. So that was my happy moment of the day, besides being here, of course. And I will pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me come. I'm new to this commission. I'm new to the area. I moved here about a year ago. I just finished my master's in public health. Prior to moving to New York, I was in Pennsylvania. I was a nurse practitioner. I was focused on geriatrics and palliative medicine, doing a lot of home visits, things like that. So I really just admired what you guys have been doing from what I've seen. And I just would be thrilled to be able to help anywhere I can. I have she, her pronouns, and I think being outside with my dogs has been a joy because I have a little poodle who's about 14 years old and does not like the ice or the snow. So she's now able to go out on the grass, and that's huge. Now I don't have to shovel the grass, which is good.
And Gretchen, if you don't mind, I'll pass for you. Kristen Kessler, you got a moment? Ready to introduce yourself and then pass it for me?
Yeah, Kristen Kessler, my pronouns are she, her. I am wow, it's so exciting. Our department is growing. One of the project managers for City of Kingston Health and Wellness Department. Most of you know this, but I oversee a program called Creating Healthy Schools and Communities, which is a big overarching, super cool, super fun, healthy living sort of program. And I just got back actually from Florida yesterday, and I was a little sad about coming back. And then it was like gorgeous today. And I was like, this is amazing. I walked outside without my coat on. I'm from the South, and I get very, very sad, probably seasonal affective disorder. I don't know, maybe everybody gets it up here. And so I feel like a ray of sunshine today. I feel much more fantastic with this weather. Let's see. I don't think, okay, I was paying attention. Siobhan, you've not gone, correct? Okay, Siobhan is not gone. I will pass it to you.
Thanks, Kristen. Hi, everyone. My name is Siobhan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the outreach coordinator for the Kingston Food Co-op. I also am the owner of Little Garden of Eden. And I haven't gotten to do anything like super fun the last few nice days that we've had. But like normally I like to do what everyone else does, bike ride, walk, spend time with my family. But I will say that I'm so happy just being able to like go and do my laundry, because I have to go outside to get to my basement and do laundry. And when it's freezing, I dread it. Or even like taking out the trash, it is like torturous, but being able to do that in like, you know, t-shirt and sandals is like the best thing. So it's the little things. I'll pass it to Marcia.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Marcia Sebro. I am the new project manager with Health and Wellness Department with Kristen and Emily. Do come and visit us at our Health and Wellness apartment, which is here on Hoffman Street. What I love about the transitioning weather is having dinner early and then being able to go for a walk after that. And I will pass it to Malia.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am coming to you from my office at Bard College, where I'm a vice president, but I live in Kingston. And I've been on the commission, I don't remember for how long now, 1.5 years, 2 years, something around that. I haven't really been able to enjoy the weather so far today. I have driven back and forth to Albany and 3 times back and forth across the river today. It's just been a crazy day. But I did go snowshoeing at Kingston Point this weekend, so that was fun. And I believe, Susie, did you went? Okay. No, you didn't go. Go ahead.
Susie Jimenez, she, they pronouns, director at Adelante Student Voices. Just enjoying the weather and getting to open my curtains so my plants can get light finally. It is a big win. So I will pass it to Barbara. Did you go? Barbara.
Barbara, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm on my phone. I think electricity has gone out in my area of near Forsythe Park, etc. So I'm on my phone. Arbor Hill, Alderman, Ward 1, City of Kingston. I'm a citizen, family caregiver, chair of the Ulster County Community Services Board, etc. Let's see. Today, I went for a walk in Forsythe Park with one of the many dog walkers, and I'm now going to officially be heading up a Forsythe Park cleanup, April 2nd. There you have it. And the egg hunt is the 9th. So if you have any egg hunters in your lives, there you have it. So yeah, I love this weather.
Thank you, Barbara. Maybe Susanna is the last. When Susanna wants you to introduce yourself, and you haven't gone, wave me down, of course.
Hi, I'm Susanna Callahan from the Institute for Family Health. And I guess the thing that we're sharing is what we like about the weather. Is that what I'm getting?
We're inspired by the good weather today. What do you like to do when it's like this?
I guess, well, I'm in a little post-vacation where it was really hot and returning to this, I'm a little scattered still. I'd like to be outside. Yeah. I like to be outside in all kinds of weather though. So, but I guess just I like to be outside.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Last chance to wave me down, but I think we got to introduce everyone. Thanks for being here. We have quite a bit for our agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to move us along. First up is our February meeting minutes. So commissioners, I put it in the chat, but I'll put it in again as I'm talking about it. Were there any edits or things that we missed for the February meeting notes? If not, I could hear a motion to accept them.
Move to accept the minutes.
I will second.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder, if anyone wasn't at the meeting last time, you wouldn't be able to vote.
And it looks like that would be Siobhan, Sarah, and Susie. Susie, you mind? I'll put you as abstentions, and Siobhan. Does that sound good? So then all others, if you don't mind, if you want to pass it, you can give me a visual thumbs up. You can use the icon. You can say aye. I see Malia. I see Katrina. I see Susanna. Troy Ellen. Yeah, thumbs up. Great. Cool. All right. And the motion passes. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, very quick administrative matters. We still have 2 open seats, y'all. Part of that is because the last person that we appointed to be a commissioner is our very own Marcia Sebro. So this is the first time that I'm officially announcing at the commission meeting that we are very pleased indeed to have Marcia be our project manager. She's coming to us from Cornell Cooperative Extension. You introduced yourself officially to the commission, so maybe I won't have you, introduce yourself again, but just so you all know, Marcia's already digging into a lot of Live Well Kingston work. We're just so pleased to have her. So welcome, Marcia. But all that to say, we do have the 2 open seats. So sort of a reminder to commissioners, especially, think about if there's other people in your networks that would be a good fit for us. We would love to have people that are clearly interested in the health in our community. That's probably the foremost part. Other considerations we've had in the past is the Spanish speaking community, people in our communities that I'm struggling with my words today, people that are under-resourced in our community, people that we haven't done a great job outreaching to. I'll say it in an ineloquent way that today. Any thoughts on that? Otherwise, we'll move on to our presentation about Heal Well. Great, thanks everybody. And Theresa, you're here today to tell us a little bit about Heal Well. I say presentation, but it's just a conversation. We just want to kind of get an update about what's going on in Heal Well. And you probably want to mention that we have an event coming up this Saturday. Want to take it away?
Perfect. I was thinking beforehand, I'm like, I didn't prepare anything. I feel like I have in the past, but here we are. And so I don't remember the last time I presented to the commission, but we had loosely at Heal Well talked about trying to focus more on mental health this year. It's not like official, but it's kind of an, I guess, an underlying theme of what we're trying to be mindful of. And so with that, we have been brainstorming about doing a mental health panel. We actually had hoped to do one in February, but with the ice storm and just probably being too overly optimistic about our schedules, we decided that we'd be best and actually great timing to move it to May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we have 3 panelists thus far planned for a woman from the Institute, Ali Decker, a woman Kezia from the county, and potentially, although I'm just bringing this to Heal Well's attention, a woman who's a private licensed child social worker, did I say that right? Who has focused on anxiety and depression in her practice. And so we're still in the planning stages, but we're hoping to do that. And then also and I guess I'll just say that this is going to be a virtual panel. And the idea is to try to gear it towards the community, understanding where the needs of the community really are in this moment. In February, we were focusing a little bit more on COVID and how that impacts mental health, but it's not going to be as big of a focus for the panel that we're going to do in May. And the idea behind it, I think, can be summarized as what can we do to cultivate awareness around mental health and to normalize mental health care, and then to provide resources and practical everyday tips to people in our community who might be struggling with mental health. And so that's kind of the theme of what we're working on for this panel. And because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, we are hoping to, I guess, whether it's through an official collaboration or just somehow supporting via social media and marketing, any other events that organizations are doing in our community to support mental health. And so we're just starting to get the word out about that. We're still in kind of the planning stages for everything. We have a planning meeting scheduled for next week. But the idea is that the idea is that we try to build a collaborative effort towards really addressing mental health and highlighting all the organizations that are focusing on it. So if anyone here knows organizations that do this work, and of course, if they're planning something for the month of May, let Kristen, myself, Emily know, and we'll kind of add it to our brainstorming process.
Theresa, I'm just wondering if we should, I'm just for folks, I'm part of Heal Well. I'm just wondering if we should clarify in the description of this, when we talk about mental health, we're not talking about like seriously mentally, serious mental health issues. That's not what we're addressing, like the panelists are going to be addressing, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's important to do that, but if it's going to be focusing more on, the umbrella terms of anxiety, depression, because mental health is so broad. And I think we just want to be careful not to mislead people or attract people who are coming with seriously mental health, I don't know.
Well, and I guess my hope is because you're right, we had this whole plan for the February one with the questions prepared for the panelists, and we're back at basically the starting point again. Yeah. So I think next week when we meet, we'll be talking to the panelists and getting input from everyone like that, just exactly what should we be focusing on? How do we market it? I think ideally we'll have resources for people who suffer and need more serious support in the community. We can direct them to resources. Those things won't be addressed on the panel, but yes, I hear what you're saying. Kristen, Emily, anything else? Because you've obviously been involved in the planning. Anything else that I'm missing with respect to the panel conversation?
I see Troy Ellen's got her hand up. Do you want to go?
Sorry, I'm on my phone and I don't
I
can't see everyone.
I can moderate that. Yeah.
That's quite all right, Theresa. Thank you so much for this. I was thinking, so certainly what has helped a lot of people, including me, since March 2020 is mindfulness, focus, square breathing, things like that. I mean, because stress and anxiety doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go into therapy, but there are ways to practice self-care. So perhaps that could be a component.
Absolutely. We actually
already planned. I'm sorry.
No. That's all thoughts are absolutely important and welcome. The practitioner who I have recently invited to be on the panel. Part of her practice, her private practice, is doing mindfulness, meditation, and yoga with her clients. So she'll be great to be able to speak to that with some authority. I will also be moderating. I have a background in those things, but I won't be a panelist. But yes, it will be an important part of it. My curiosity is largely like, what are, how can we hit some of the big issues that people are facing, right? And I've seen a lot of friends who are married, whose marriages have suffered. That's a really disruptive thing for the family, for people's mental health. I think there still is concern about COVID, and for people who have compromised immune systems, feeling fear about masks not being required in most places. So it's things like that I'd love to get feedback from anyone who has thoughts about what they're seeing other people, so that we can kind of direct the panel to address some of those things. Of course, the panelists who are working with people every day will be able to give some feedback in building out the panel questions, but things like that is great feedback from anyone.
Leah, go right ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Theresa, for the work you're doing with Heal Well, and this panel sounds great. I just want to share, you asked for input, what we're seeing. I work at an educational institution, and we have a lot of programs in high schools around here, and we also have a nursery school. So we're seeing the impacts of the pandemic on young people of all ages. And one of the things that we're really noticing is that children's ability to interact with each other socially has obviously really been affected by the fact that they're, masking has taken up so much of their lives. And the younger they are, the more of their life that this has been. And I met with a bunch of our nursery school teachers earlier this week, and they talked about how they've seen huge differences in children's ability to speak, and their listening comprehension, and just their ability to interact with each other at all. Some of the kids are just silent. And even with people on the cusp of adulthood, some of our college age students, this is this formative time in their lives when they've also been masked in the middle of a lot of the most important developmental times of their lives. And so I think the impacts on mental health are maybe sort of long-term or not well understood, but just helping people reconnect socially, especially young people reconnect socially, is so important. And we've noticed our students just asking for more social events, like let's just have a picnic and sit down together, because that's happened in family groups, but it hasn't happened in a lot of larger groups yet, among peer groups that really would otherwise have been interacting a lot with each other. So I'd encourage you to think about young people and how to help them overcome those barriers.
Can I just add something quickly? If it's okay. I was just reminded, the other day I was in the car listening to this NPR piece on this whole issue of masking and childhood development, and this piece turned everything on its head for me, because it said that they were talking about people who are blind and who have developed stronger listening skills and other skills, and how they're starting to see similar things, but nothing that has true research or evidence yet, that kids who are masked can also really still learn a lot socially and interactions through other means, right? Through their eyes, auditory, and verbally. So it's not clear yet that, what you're saying, Molly, which was what I always thought too, is entirely true. And that there is some concern from some, quote unquote experts that there's too much emphasis on all that's missing rather than on what they're gaining from other means. So it was just like, I need to go back and look at it. I just remembering this, hearing this.
That could be true. There is data showing that there are already serious impacts huge impacts in reading and learning comprehension at all ages. So attribute that directly to the pandemic, but it's coincident with the pandemic. So I think there is a lot of data. Teasing it out is hard, but my general point is people need to reconnect. Where these kids are blind, maybe they're developing other senses, but they're moving into a world where they're not blind and they need to learn how to use all their other senses as well.
I want to go to Marcia, who's got her hand up.
Hi, thanks. This is fantastic, Theresa. I just wanted to offer, so aligning the event with mental health awareness is so brilliant. And so awareness, right? So always an opportunity for us to increase our knowledge and build some things in our parlance around tips and tools that we can use in an everyday way. So I just wanted to suggest in terms of the format and also to echo what Troy Ellen mentioned. So after the panelists, they'll be there to talk about their work and maybe share some data that that we know and continue to learn about how what's really stressful, how stress may and anxiety might manifest itself, and then to give some real-time tips and tools that people can actualize and work on, and then to give a demonstration of that, so that right there on the call, everyone who participates kind of gets that experience of how they can incorporate that. And to make it interactive, it could be everything from sharing something of gratitude to doing some seated or standing yoga demonstration to a mindfulness demonstration, so that there's some interaction and takeaways about what people can put in place right away. And then maybe everyone who signs up, information can be sent to them afterwards, other links and resources. And I just also wanted to say, I'm not, in thinking about who it might be marketed to, because every group needs attention: children, adolescents, young people, seniors, in terms of connection, and because we know isolation is bad and we're coming out of a pandemic. But I think to keep it as general as possible, so everyone kind of tunes in and feels like, well, if it's just about how parents are coping with children, then maybe I won't tune in because I don't have any kiddos or something. So just kind of keep it really general. I think it's so important. Thank you for taking that on.
Thank you for all of your thoughts, Marcia. Yes, we struggled in a bit to think about, should we target this? And we landed with, no, let's not. Let's keep it more general. And part of our brainstorming is figuring out how exactly to keep it interactive too, because everyone's zoomed out, and we want it to be a positive experience for people, and a practical and a useful experience for people. So those are all things that we will absolutely be making a part of the experience.
And so I'm watching the clock a little bit, and Theresa, we haven't brought up Springwell. Do you want to mention that? I have the link to the Facebook event that I'll put in the chat if you want to talk about it.
Did I just mute myself? Okay, am I here now? Springwell is happening this Saturday at the YWCA, and it is in collaboration with the Holistic Health Community, Live Well Kingston, and the Institute for Family Health. And basically it is from 1 to 4 o'clock. There are private wellness sessions with different practitioners. And then there are group classes. There's a dance class, a yoga class, a family yoga class, a sprouting mung beans class, a sound bath by yours truly. What am I forgetting? There might be one more class, but everything is free. You do have to RSVP if you want a individual private session with one of the practitioners, but all the classes are just walk in, show up, LiveWell's providing water. The Institute is going to be doing, I think, blood pressure, giving out masks. There will be food to purchase. That I think is the quick and dirty of all of that. And the Y has the link. Emily, you put the link in. If you want to pass it along, if you know somebody who would be interested, please do pass that information along. Any questions?
Yeah. I was going to try to, wrap up Heal Well. So, Heal Well is one of our focus teams that does meet quite regularly. We had a little bit of discussion about, did we want to meet by topic a little bit this year? But in some ways it the meetings started to fall off our calendar. I don't know, sometimes maybe having the monthly meetings keeps us going. So Heal Well, always in discussion about how it's formed and how we pull more people in, but it is nice. We have this event that we're sort of rallying around. And so that feels very actionable right now. So Heal Well is actually doing quite well as a focus team. Any last thoughts on Heal Well? Otherwise, we'll move on in our agenda here tonight. All right. Nobody's waving or yelling me down. So it is time for Stacy's stretch break. So feel free to turn off your camera if you'd like, or join me in, I don't mind being a little silly on a recorded video. So everybody stand up. Oh, recently someone was talking about, the blow up guys in front of the car dealerships. Let's do a blow up guy where we just wave our hands around a little bit. And then I was out walking, so I'm going to lean over and do a lean over and touching my toes a little bit. So I'm just going to lean down and try to let my back open up a little bit. I'm going to swan dive back up and bring my arms up. And of course, everything I'm doing is just a suggestion. You got to do what feels good to your body and just do any kind of movement that feels good. I like to do little twists, do the washing machine. For some reason, I'm doing lots of analogies today. So we're going to do the washing machine. yeah, I'm hearing Marcia say doing the hokey pokey. We can turn ourselves around. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, thank you, Kristen. We can do some arm stretches where we bring an arm across. We can do the other side. And how about a head roll? Oh, I love a head roll. And let's do 3 deep breaths and then we'll all come back. So I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to move my arms because I'm doing it from yoga. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm letting my shoulders go down. And I'm going to breathe in one more time. I'm going to breathe out and let my shoulders go down. Then one last time. I'm going to breathe in. And then I'm just going to let it all go. And then welcome you all back when you are able to join me again. And I'm going to stay standing up now. Try to keep my energy up as we keep going. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me in a stretch tonight. And as you're all coming back, I'm going to copy. So the next part of our discussion, well, I'm going to put in the link to our draft action plan, but I'm not sure that we'll actually go too far into that document. Just as an FYI, last month, we had a pretty robust conversation about our action plan for the commission. As a reminder, each focus team has their own action plan, and this is a kind of an umbrella action plan for this group here, the commission. And in that, we sort of identified that we're still trying to figure out how we're going to support the health of our community. And within that became a discussion about sort of identifying what the social determinants of health are. So this is a phrase that I started using once I kind of came into this work. And many of us might use in our professions, or we might use in our day-to-day life. And we're sort of identifying with a lot of this work that we want to develop some common language. What do we mean by social determinants of health? Susanna, who works for a health institution, might have a different definition than my interpretation of what that means. Not to call you out, Susanna, but just using you. So I think what I sort of landed on from reviewing last month was we're going to have a little bit of an exercise, and we don't have to formalize our definition. It's really an exercise about common language, but I did pull together some definitions. So here's this document, and I was going to share my screen, especially for those that are on phones. So let me do that now. Bear with me, here it is. Let's see, can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Thank you, everybody. All right, great. So to dive into this discussion, and I also want to say thank you to Barbara, who sent me a couple of articles to read. That was really great. So the social determinants of health. Have I been saying social determinants of change or social determinants of health? So forgive me if I've been saying it differently, but social determinants of health. So here's a couple definitions. I'm going to read them out loud for myself and for you, and hopefully this will start our conversation. So the social determinants of health are the conditions in the environments where people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks. And I sort of liked this as a starting definition. It seemed like that was my first interpretation of it. In our chat last month, Kristen had put in this language, which I thought was good, which was like the consideration of physical, mental, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual health. Let's see, the World Health Organization's definition is similar. Their language is slightly different. The conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age, which sort of matches our focus teams, which I liked. And they added the fundamental drivers of these conditions, which feels to me kind of broad in some ways. I kind of almost wanted that to be defined more. The fundamental drivers of these conditions felt kind of intellectual to me. Let's see, another part of the definition, someone added to it, shaped by the distribution of money, power, and resources. I thought that was an interesting lens of which to look at it. And then finally, in this description from the CDC, it's pretty much the same, but they added this part, which is in addition to more mental attributes, material attributes of place, the pattern of social engagement and sense of security are also affected by where people live. And I thought that was an interesting point because we do often talk about a sense of safety, a sense of security, which is, I think, part of this spectrum. Then these last bullet points are just some other the considerations that the CDC had, which was economic stability, education, social and community context, health and healthcare, and neighborhood and built environment. So that was a whole lot about it to try to cue up this conversation. And I put in a little bit of my thoughts there. Forgive me for that. I thought we have a lot of people here. My original thought was we would do a circle round, but I actually think we might have too many people to try to do that. So maybe we'll popcorn, but I'm going to ask people to use the icon to raise your hand so that we really can sort of give people the time to sort of get a thought out and finish it. And then if you don't mind, let your thought end and let the next person go. It's a little forced, I know, but this way, hopefully everyone gets a chance to talk.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So can you just remind us the context for this discussion? What are we trying, what's our goal?
The goal is to create common language here in this group.
About
So
social determinants of health.
yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, so we don't have to necessarily, I don't know if codify is the right word. We don't have to vote or approve anything. That's not necessarily the goal. It's really to have a conversation here about, do we all mean the same thing when we say the social determinants of health? If we want to in some way codify it, we can, but we don't even necessarily need to wordsmith it unless we would like to. Any other questions about process, goals, anything like that? All right. So would anyone like to go first? Does anyone have any thoughts about, yeah, Barbara, go right ahead. And you're muted if you don't know that.
My connection's funkier today because of, I don't know what's going on with the internet connection, but Barbara Hill, I sent you some stuff today, Emily, and I didn't have a chance to print it out and I can't get to it on my computer, etc. So, but
Did, I think we did
I'm
lose Barbara.
having Instagram.
Barbara,
Am I
want to
back?
try?
No.
Yeah, want to try again? Yeah.
Okay. The concept of health, a slide that I use in presentations is that it's like, so you have 100% of somebody's health, and like 20% might be your medical visits or your visits, mental health, whatever. And 80% is social determinants, or so what do you call that? So I always think of things as health, like mental health fits in there, blah, blah, blah. So these papers I read today, it was like, it's important to distinguish whether you're talking about community health or social determinants from a person's viewpoint and things that person needs. So, and then social determinants doesn't necessarily apply just to people who are, I don't know if it's politically correct, but disadvantaged or don't have the optimum of, whatever they could have in terms of housing, food, etc. So I think we're focusing more on the community definition part of it. And so, some of the terms in the papers I said, it was like social risk factors or conditions. It was the word conditions that kind of was simple enough to understand. So it was like social something conditions that I wish I had in front of me. So I don't know what else I want to say about it, but it is important to have consistent terminology, because I've started to go brain dead hearing that term. Even, and a lot in my field, you say SDOH. So it's yet another acronym, So determinants is the word, I think, that throws us off a lot because it's such a scientific word. So, yeah, it's like social risk factors that impact health. And I'm not a big fan of the term wellness because I think it's gotten a little overused too. But I think a lot of what you said, Emily, is really cool, what you brought together. So thank you.
I got most of it from your articles, so thank you. Anybody want to go next to chime in on their impression of what social determinants, or maybe what that means to them, how they see it in action? Could talk to that.
I'm supposed to raise my hand, right?
It seems like a good way to organize it, but go Troy.
Okay, sorry, I forgot. I didn't know which one. It's a little different because we're on a webinar, so the board's a little different down below. Anyway, one of the things that I was thinking of is it also depends, and some of this is said, but it depends who you are, what age you are, what stage of life, the communities you live in, the people you're surrounded with or not, your mental health. For example, there were so many different things, and we could say, okay, everybody living in, and I'm going to bring it down really tight, everybody living in a specific neighborhood that is affluent, leafy, grass, dogs, kids playing, and, safe, the whole thing, that they have the same social determinant of health. I guarantee you they don't. From what I've read. And so, because there are so many things that go into it. So we need to be, I've been using mindful a lot, but we need to be mindful of those sort of things. What I don't know, because I'm not a scientist, is how do you tease out, how do you gauge what is something that is generalized enough that we can actually try to accomplish it without being so watered down that it becomes meaningless.
Barbara, I'm sorry, Marcia, you're putting stuff in the chat. Do you want to bring it up, or I can connect us to another thought?
Yeah, I was just looking at the vision, mission, and purpose of the Live Well Kingston and thinking about how that definition aligns and what do we want to take from the state's like definition and how that applies to the purpose of the commission. That was just like one approach, like what, what's the common denominators there? Thanks.
Kristen, go right ahead.
Yeah, I will just say, I think that's a great idea, just to take this definition and connect it very specifically to Live Well Kingston. When you were describing them, Emily, it sounded like, part of it's like almost like aligned with our focus groups as well, the definition of it. I wanted to also, there's another resource from Healthy People that I think is kind of helpful. And just like this idea, I think social determinants of health doesn't imply a specific group of people. It doesn't imply that it only applies to people. I think it's another way of approaching defining health, so that the different social determinants of health, you look at like housing, and that's like for everybody. Like you don't only do housing for people who have insecure housing or are unhoused or anything. Like it's like that is like the category, and you use that to recognize that people who don't have affordable, stable housing, that is a negative effect on their health. So like, and then people who do have affordable, stable housing, that just means that that's not a social determinant of health. Maybe that can contribute positively towards their health, but it's like you use it for everything. I think it's kind of just helping to define health in different ways besides like biometrics, besides just looking at people's like going to the doctor and their blood pressure and their blood sugar and things like that. Just like these contributors to our health. I don't know. I wanted to kind of put that out there, that like you use it for everybody, and people fall along a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum, like, okay, if people are unhoused or if people are food insecure, then maybe they are at risk for not having as optimal of health. And that's how we're going to address their health, is by helping to find food security, establish that, or helping with people who don't have affordable housing. But I put this link in the chat because I think it's actually a little new to me. I thought they had something different, but it's from healthypeople.gov. And you can look at, they separate the social determinants of health into 5 key domains: economic stability, education, health and healthcare, neighborhood and built environment, and social and community context. And then you can go to each of the categories. So like under economic stability, in order to help further define it so people can really understand what that domain means, they've listed poverty, employment, food insecurity, and housing instability. So they've helped to kind of further define what these social determinants of health mean and how you might go forth and helping to address specific content in there. So I thought maybe that might just be helpful for some people if you're still like wrapping your head around it, and they've got these literature summaries. I thought it might be kind of a helpful resource to share.
Ready, go right ahead.
Kristen, thanks. I was just looking at that same stuff when you were reading it off. And one of the things I went down a little further that I thought, was kind of, for me, is, applying what we know about SDOH. We're not looking, not only to improve the individual, but population health. But what that does is it advances health equity for all. And, and if I then that to me, I can peg that back to our mission for Live Well, our commission work that we're doing. So, yeah, and, how we go about it, and, looking at some things that can be applied to populations for population health, more so than just the individual.
Nobody's ready to chime in just yet. Anybody else want to share? Going back to what Troy Ellen was saying about, you could have 2 people living in exactly the same neighborhood with the same resources, and you'll have different health outcomes. what was really interesting in some of the articles that Barbara sent that I got a chance to read, I'll put them in our notes so that everyone can dive deeper if they want. They talked about how, so social determinants of health is like one aspect of health. And then there's your genetics, and then there's your healthcare. And then there's, so health is so many things, as I always come back to. It's like everything. And social determinants of health sort of, to me, seems like it's the umbrella of health that Live Well Kingston can work on. We don't have a house well, but the city does have a housing director, and we get to work with Bartek, which is great. But some of these other things, to me, definitely feels like it's the access to food, access to transportation, access, hopefully to heal well, to some healthcare. So to me, because I can't change anyone's genetics, I can't change the trauma that maybe someone has had that affects health. But this is what maybe we can do with policy and systems change, is the social determinants of health support.
I do think it's really a long-term process though, Emily. I mean, social determinants are so embedded, some people refer to them as the political determinants of health, and it's because they are largely based on inequalities in our society. And so I think it's the, I don't know, just having been in community health and public health for so long, I think we're all glad that more and more of the emphasis on well-being is there is more of a realization that it's not just about, individuals making changes, right? It's not putting the stigma or the onus just on an individual to make changes in their health and their behaviors, but that it's a much bigger entrenched problem in society. And but I, so there are programs, right? One thing is to develop programs like responses to COVID, so emergency food programs or pop-up mobile health clinics or whatever. But if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, it's still not really changing the system, right? It's not changing the system. You're creating programs to address the inequities, but they're not changing the inequities. And I do know that evidence has shown that up to potentially, I think, even 50% of health outcomes are actually associated with social determinants. Again, where we think it's about access to doctors, I mean, think about doctors I work with and providers I work with, and I think most of us know it's like that's a piece of it. But the truth is, you could make a lot more change in health outcomes by changing a lot of other things in our society, like housing, food access, education, jobs, well-paying jobs. All those things would make a bigger difference, I think, in health outcomes than putting another, sorry to say this, but putting another health center somewhere. And so anyway, so I don't know what you're thinking of when you're thinking of making changes in a policy area. Like, that's big. To me, that's big. That's big stuff. That's long-term big stuff. So not to put you on the spot.
Sure. Yeah. I by no means think this is fast or easy work. Yeah. No, but it's policy, environment, and systems change. So that's sort of part of the mission of Live Well Kingston. So policy can be, we're talking about, Kristen's going to mention in updates about some food procurement policy that might be changing in the state. To me, that's part of social determinants of health. So I don't want to, I feel like I've gotten a chance to talk a lot. So I'm going to, Heidi, I think, do you need to go again? Your hand is still up, if you don't mind taking it down, if you're not going to talk. And then if not, Kristen, you're going to go.
Does these things, sorry.
Marilyn, did you have something real fast?
I wanted to talk about the fact that in the work that we do when we're talking about policy and/or systems change, it doesn't necessarily need to be accomplished by this commission. It can be identified by folks on this commission of what are the resources, the organizations out there that we could collaborate with to assist in this and to, keep moving forward, whether it's anti-racism, feeding programs, whatever. The work doesn't need to be done here.
Kristen, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you mentioned the policy. Sorry, I have to teach today, so I can't stay probably until the update section. I have to leave in a few minutes. But as a preview, as an example of this, you'll talk about it maybe a little bit later. It's linked in the agenda. Michelle Hinchy is a senator here. I put it in the chat. Has put forth a bill that would help to create values-based procurement, a value-based procurement policy. So the state of New York would, right now, any state institution, whenever they are using state funding to purchase food, has to go through a bidding process, and then they have to go with the lowest bidder. So they have to choose the cheapest one. And this this bill is modeled off of the Good Food Purchasing Program. And so it has a values-based model where you can look at environmental sustainability, fair wages for workers, workers' rights, their ability to unionize, or if it's a co-op owned company or business, and it would allow state institutions to not go with the lowest bidder. So they would be allowed to go with a bid that's up to only 10% more, but that's another thing to talk about. And that's like something that is a policy that I think is really interesting and I feel like it aligns with this conversation on like, what is social determinants of health and how are we helping that? What does this mean for the Live Well Kingston Commission? This is something that the Hudson Valley Food Systems Coalition will be potentially writing a letter, providing some feedback to the senator's office on the content of this bill and what they would like to see in the future as it's implemented. And they will write this letter, and then potentially Live Well Kingston Commission, if it aligns with the values and the commissioners are supportive of it, would co-sign it. So just going back to this idea, also we don't have to do everything. We can use this model of addressing the social determinants of health to work with groups like the Hudson Valley Food Systems Coalition, and then just co-sign on to something and lend the commission's support and voice as they're getting state policy to be changed. So that's like an example. Also helps me to give you a very brief update when I have to leave in like 5 minutes instead.
Any other voices we haven't heard from yet tonight? Anybody want to give their thoughts on social determinants of health, on Kristen's policy that she just brought up? Any other things anybody else want to bring up? Just want to give space to anyone else who hasn't had a chance to talk yet.
Really? I just want to thank Kristen for bringing up Senator Hinchy's effort, because I think it's an example of the kinds of creative ways that the ideas we discuss in this group can be turned into policies or institutionalized. And it's a new way of measuring values and prioritizing goals in the community. Because often it's just, when we talk about resources and how they should be spent wisely, it's like, well, let's spend the fewest amount of resources possible. Let's go for the cheapest thing. And that doesn't always bring the best outcome. So I think that's an extraordinary and unusual example of a politician like really trying to bring a new set of values into a government process. And I think we should just look for, try to think of other ways that we can help our political leaders bring those kinds of ways of thinking into the various processes that guide how resources get spent in the community.
So we can bring it back to language if we'd like. So do we sort of feel that this definition of social determinants of health being the conditions and the environments where people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks, does that sort of define it for us collectively? Or do we want to add in, you know, the fundamental drivers of these conditions, or shaped by the distribution of money power resources, or, you know, some of the other elements?
I would add some of the more radical definitions to it, simply because we may not achieve it in year 1, 2, or 3, but it's something to which we should aspire, particularly, you know, in a micro population center like the city of Kingston. I think it's important. That's my 2 cents.
And, you know, I'm sort of reflecting on there's language around food deserts, right? And so my understanding of the definition of a food desert is that there is lack of like a grocery store in a certain area. And then someone has expanded that definition to say it's lack of access to a grocery store in a certain area because of the social structure. So you could put in a grocery store in a neighborhood, and if the people don't have the income to purchase food at that grocery store, it's still a food desert. So there's, you know, another term called food apartheid, which I think is really interesting language. And so to me, social determinants of health in the definition is sort of that, yeah, it's environments where people are born, live, work, and play. And there's sort of an element that's missing, which is how did these places come to be the way that they are? And I'm looking for a way to acknowledge that. Or social determinants of health is that. And then in greater work that we do, we have other words for other, you know, we continue to talk about the structures of things in a different language.
Emily, I think it's useful to have this conversation to make sure we're not just sort of completely process oriented, like let's set up goals and then what's our process for developing the goals. So the discussion is useful to make sure that we're constantly renewing what we're thinking about and making sure we're not missing something. But I don't think we should, this is not an academic group, we're not writing a dissertation. I don't think we should get too hung up on the language. I mean, as long as it's as the things that we have already identified for ourselves and we're broadly interested in fit within the scope of the language that's been brought, I think it's enough to allow us to move forward. And then the next time we discuss it, we can think about if we want to bring something else in.
Thank you for that, Malia. All right. Then I think this has been a robust conversation. Thank you, everyone, for kind of considering what the social determinants of health is. And yeah, we can always come back and keep thinking about it. And I appreciate all your time and thoughts on it.
I think it's likely to evolve over time as we learn more and as we find very quickly, I'll say, as we find what works and what doesn't work.
Great. And so I'm going to sort of, again, bring it back. So we had our action plan last month. And so we, at the bottom of it in goal 4, had put one of the goal 4A was to develop a common language that defines the social determinants of health and public health. And so I feel like we did that today. So, you know, there's something very pleasing about a check. So we did a thing, and thank you for that. And I do think it will inform. So I'm thinking that next month, I'd like to bring us back to goal 2, which was support the health of our community. And so we sort of need to still define how the commission will focus on supporting the health of the community. So, for example, a couple of commission meetings ago, I think, Malia, you brought up some veteran support. And so for me, in my reflection, I was speaking with Marsha, our new project lead. We were talking a little bit like, I don't want to recreate veteran resources. I feel like that's not in my scope. But to me, for Live Well, our first step could be assessing what veteran resources are in our community. So I don't really have a great feel for that. And that might include, that assessment might be having a phone call with Malia and or other people in our community who do know those resources. And so it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when we identify what the commission wants to sort of focus on, we don't have to do it all at once. We can sort of assess a topic or two and sort of plan out our process in a cohesive way. So I'm hoping that our discussion about social determinants of health can now lead us back to some more actionable planning, like you were saying, Malia.
And I think that ties into the point I made. We don't need to do all of the work. There are other groups out there working very effectively in this space, but we can find out who they are and find out how they can support our work, our goals, and how we can support and help advance what they're trying to accomplish. Because working in coalition is very powerful.
Well, thank you. This is, our timing is working out up really well. I think we're sort of wrapping up that discussion for tonight. Next up on our agenda, unless there's any last thoughts, we're going to move to just a few announcements and communications, and then I can let other people chime in. Kristen mentioned the Senate Bill S7534. That's the procurement bill that Hinchy is bringing up, and I'll put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to dive in a little bit deeper on that. And I think she's hoping that once the Food Systems Coalition maybe pens a letter, that maybe we bring that back to Live Well Kingston and the commissioners consider endorsing it. So we're sort of also putting on the agenda for tonight for you to start thinking about that if you'd like to support it. My announcement is that you've all been hearing me talk about it so much, but I can do it one more time. The Pedestrian and Bicycle Master Plan project that I'm managing, we have the surveys that we have on engagekingston.com. They'll be closing March 31st. So sort of a last push for public outreach for surveys. And then there's a crowdsourcing app also on Engage Kingston. That's a mapping device where people can put locations of places where they feel unsafe walking or biking in the city. That closes April 30th. So sort of in our last phase of public outreach there. That's my big announcement for that. Other announcements or communications, I would love to hear anything from any other organizations, events, programs, projects, anything you'd like Live Well Kingston and the world to sort of know about. Malia, yeah.
I apologize if this is a repeat from last time. I can't remember if I mentioned that the new developers for Tech City, which is not technically in Kingston, obviously, but it's huge and its development will affect the whole area. One of the visions they have is they want to turn an entire wing, and this is an enormous space. They want to turn an entire wing into a public health and medical training facility. So that's something for us to keep in mind and to look for opportunities to connect into that conversation. They're talking to Ulster BOCES. We're at the very beginning stages of a long-term planning process, but I think it's very exciting that these developers really know what they're doing, and this vision, I think, makes a lot of sense, and we would have a role to play in it, I believe.
Can I ask a question? If you know this, Malia, are they including, besides Ulster BOCES, are they including other health providers like the hospital or other major health providers in terms of knowing what the needs of the county are?
I don't know. So I've been more talking to them about arts related things because that's where BARD comes in. And we may come in on some of the health stuff because we do have students who are pre-med and things like that. But I've had one conversation with their planners so far, and they sort of shared their overall vision. We haven't got down to nuts and bolts yet. I don't know who all the partners are. And I'll just add, they don't know who all the partners are yet either. Like we at BARD are one of the first people they talk to. So this is, they're reaching out to a lot of people around the community.
Thanks for sharing that. I hadn't heard that part of it. Thank you. Yeah. Other announcements or communications? Susanna, anything in your world? Anything happening at Institute for Family Health?
I was away for 2 weeks, so and then I was sick actually. So I'm actually feel like I'm still catching up. So no.
I can share this much about the YMCA, and then maybe Heidi, you want to chime in. I know that Tom has a bunch of bike programs happening. I think he's got the kids Bike It program starting up in April. I know that there's a repair cafe, not this Saturday, but not cafe, but bike repair, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And then I think the adult class is April 1st and 2nd. I think you can see all of that on the YMCA's website if you go to bicycle programs. Heidi, what else is going on in your world?
For April, we have a pretty robust week for when kids are on spring break. So there's all sorts of activities for both children and families and parents. So if you're interested, just go to our YMCA website. Thanks.
Right. Anyone else? All right. I guess not.
May I ask a question? It should have been asked under old business. The open meetings law letter, the status of that?
The one that the commission wrote?
Yes, that we needed to send to Assembly Member Cahill and Senator Hinchey.
Yeah. I don't think it got mailed. So let me go back. We'll find it, dig it up. I think you wanted to review it one last time and then we'll send it. So it fell off our agenda. But the Common Council's
I know that was done and sent off by the city clerk, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I have that. Thank you for that, Troyan. Yep.
Thank you. You froze, Emily, or I froze.
Oh, can you not hear me?
I couldn't hear you for a moment.
Oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to bring up this group meeting. So next month will probably be a hybrid. I'll probably be in person at conference room 1 on the 3rd floor of City Hall. Anyone who wants to join me in person, I think will be able to. And then you all can join in this way via Zoom. Commissioners, if you want to be able to vote, you'll have to give me your address ahead of time. And I'll send out an email update confirming that.
And Emily, this will be the 13th?
I believe it'll be April 20th.
Oh, okay.
So just a heads up on that. Great. So yeah, thank you for that. That was the next thing on my agenda. Was our next meeting is April 20th, 4 to 5:30. And then if that's it, I can hear a motion to adjourn and then a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, I got Heidi. And then Malia, you got it out before Lori put her hand up, but I saw Lori do it too. So all in favor, say aye, give me a thumbs up, something like that. Thank you so much. All right, thus concludes our meeting tonight. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and your discussion. And I'll see you next month.
Enjoy the light.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you all.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Everybody.